Today we're going to look at GA4 Quota errors in Looker Studio. Why do they happen and how do we get rid of them? Looker Studio has a GA4 connector. This connector uses the GA4 Data API to get its data. Up until very recently, Google was not enforcing the quota on this API. Now they are. Which means you might be seeing error messages like this. But what exactly is the quota? If we look into the details, there are two key parts of quota that affect Looker Studio. Core tokens per project, per property, per hour, and core concurrent requests per property. What do these mean? Let's look at a Looker Studio report. Every element on this report will cause a certain number of API calls. These elements will cause one API call each. These elements will cause two API calls each, one for the data and one for the legend. So this report has a total of 9 API calls. The limit is 10, so refreshing this report won't give us an error. But if we add elements or if two users refresh at the same moment, we could see quota errors. The second rule involves tokens. Every element on this report consumes a certain number of API tokens when it is refreshed. The number of tokens consumed by each element depends on things like the amount of underlying data, the date range, the complexity of the query, and if filters are involved. Tokens are reset at the top of the hour. You get 1,250 tokens. As users refresh reports, change filters or date ranges, tokens are consumed. If you run out of tokens during the hour, you will start to get configuration errors. Analytics Canvas avoids this problem by doing an historical load. This is done over time and only needs to be done once. Now, Canvas only needs to load the most recent data, and so uses very little quota. As users are using their reports, they are getting data from Canvas, not from the Data API, so there are no quota limitations. Any number of users, any number of reports, any number of elements on each report. Now let's take a look how we can take an existing Looker Studio report and connect it to Analytics Canvas to eliminate quota errors. Let's look at a basic report. We're looking at traffic by country, and sessions, event count, views. We've got device category. Basically, we need to know what dimensions and metrics we want to put in our report. And then we use the wizard in Analytics Canvas to quickly build the same query. So we pick our property. We just have one in this case, but even if you have hundreds of properties, you could select them all here. And then we pick those same dimensions and metrics, and in this case as well, because this is direct to the API, you'll have more dimensions and metrics than previously in the Looker Studio connector. Now we just need to put a name for the query and specify the users that we want to have access to this source inside Looker Studio. Once the wizard is complete, a canvas will be generated and you'll have your input, which is GA4 data, and your output, which is your Looker Studio connector. You can easily configure an incremental load with an automation which refreshes the data on the frequency you need. Now we just need to go back to Looker Studio and we can simply add data using the Analytics Canvas connector. When you go into the drop-down, you'll see the dataset that you've just created. And this dataset now is an unlimited GA4 dataset. You can take any element in the report and move away from the quota limited GA4 API to Analytics Canvas. Not only does Analytics Canvas solve the API quota issue, it also gives you a whole series of tools to connect to GA4 BigQuery data, including a BigQuery query builder that generates the SQL for you. Head over to analyticscanvas.com to start your free trial today.